The next time she goes quiet, you will feel a very specific urge rise in your chest within the first 10 minutes, an urge to fix it immediately, to reach out, to ask what happened, to do anything except sit still. That urge has cost you every single time you have followed it before. Tonight you learn the exact opposite move, the one thing that actually works when she starts pulling away, and it has nothing to do with chasing her and nothing to do with going cold either. By the end of this video, you'll know precisely what to do in that first hour, why it works on her nervous system specifically, and why almost everyone gets this moment backwards. I did not learn this by reading it somewhere. I learned it by getting it wrong for years, watching every attempt to close the distance push her further away, until I finally understood what her withdrawal actually requires from the other person. And once I stopped doing the instinctive thing, everything about how she responded to me changed. Here is what almost nobody tells you about pulling away. It is rarely a decision about you specifically. It is a nervous system reflex, and reflexes do not respond to logic, pressure, or reassurance delivered too soon. They respond to something else entirely, something most people never think to offer in that moment, because it feels completely counterintuitive. You have probably lived through this cycle already. She grows distant after a conversation that felt fine on your end. You send a message checking in, worded carefully so it does not sound needy, and it goes unanswered for hours. You wait, then send another one, softer this time, giving her space while somehow still asking for a response. By the third message, you already know how this ends, because it has ended this way before. She eventually replies with something short and polite, and something between you has quietly shifted, even though nothing was technically said. That cycle repeats because the response you are giving is built for a different kind of person entirely, someone whose distance is genuinely about disinterest. Hers rarely is. And treating the wrong cause with the wrong response is exactly why nothing has worked so far. To be clear, this is not a manipulation tactic disguised as psychology, and it will not force someone to want you who genuinely does not. What this actually does is remove the specific behaviors that turn a temporary pull away into a permanent one. So if there's still real connection underneath the distance, it has room to come back on its own. Let us get into it. The first thing to understand is what pulling away is actually solving for. When closeness with you starts to feel like more than she can regulate, her system does not experience that as excitement building toward commitment. It experiences it as pressure building toward exposure. And exposure reads as danger regardless of how good the relationship actually is. Distance is the fastest available exit from that pressure, a way to lower the emotional temperature before it reaches a point she cannot control. Every text you send in that window, however calm it sounds on the surface, adds temperature back into a system that is actively trying to cool down. This is where the actual method starts, and it is deceptively simple. The moment you notice her pulling away, resist the urge to respond to the distance directly, and instead match her pace exactly, without announcing that you are doing it. If she goes quiet for a day, you do not fill that day with messages waiting for her to resurface. You go quiet too, not coldly, not as punishment, but because matching her rhythm removes the one thing that keeps the alarm ringing, the sense that someone is pressing against a door she is trying to close gently. This works for a precise reason, not a mysterious one. Avoidant withdrawal escalates almost entirely in response to perceived pursuit. The moment pursuit stops, the nervous system has nothing left to defend against, and the pressure was reacting to naturally starts to drain on its own. You are not tricking her into missing you. You are simply removing the exact stimulus that was keeping the alarm activated in the first place. The second part of the method matters just as much as the first, and it is where most people undo all their progress without realizing it. When she does eventually resurface, whether that takes a day or a week, the instinct is to bring up the distance, to ask what happened, to seek some explanation for the silence before moving forward. Do not do this. The moment you turn her return into a conversation about her withdrawal, you confirm exactly what her system was afraid of. That closeness with you comes attached to accountability she has to perform on demand. Instead, meet her exactly where she is, at whatever normal, low-pressure register she returns in, without referencing the gap at all. This does not mean the distance never gets addressed. It means the timing matters more than most people realize. Bringing it up in the moment she resurfaces reopens the exact wound that caused a retreat. Bringing it up later, once things feel stable again, once she has had proof that closeness with you did not immediately demand an explanation, lands completely differently. At that point, the conversation is not confrontation. It is simply two people talking about a pattern, which she is far more likely to engage with honestly. Picture how this plays out in a real exchange. She goes quiet on a Tuesday after a weekend that felt unusually close. Instead of a check-in message Wednesday morning, you carry on with your own week exactly as you would if nothing had shifted, not performing busyness, actually engaging with your own life. Thursday evening, she sends something small and ordinary, a meme, a comment about her day, nothing that references a silence at all. You respond in the same register, warm but unremarkable, no mention of the gap, no relief spilling out through the screen. That single exchange, handled this way, does more to rebuild safety than any paragraph explaining how the silence made you feel ever could have. Here is where most people sabotage this without meaning to, in one of two ways. Some execute the first half correctly, stepping back and giving genuine space, but the moment she returns, they cannot resist asking what was wrong, undoing the entire effect in a single sentence. Others go too far in the opposite direction, going completely silent even after she resurfaces, treating the withdrawal as a punishment they now need to make her pay for, which reads her system as a different kind of pressure, a colder, more punishing one. Neither version works, because both are still reactions to her pulling away rather than a stable presence that exists independently of it. The deeper principle underneath all of this is worth naming directly, because it explains why this approach works consistently rather than by luck. Avoidant withdrawal responds almost entirely to the emotional charge of the room, not to the specific words used inside it. A calm presence that neither chases nor punishes sends an unmistakable signal. That closeness with you does not come with price attached. That space is allowed to exist without it meaning the relationship is ending. That signal, repeated consistently over time, is often the single most effective way to lower someone's baseline fear response to intimacy, far more effective than any individual conversation about commitment could ever be. There is a piece of this that requires real honesty with yourself before it will work at all. Stepping back cannot be a performance designed to provoke a reaction, a version of reverse psychology meant to manipulate her into missing you faster. If the calm is fake, engineered purely to produce a result, she will sense it, because the anxious energy underneath the performed calm still radiates the same pressure it was meant to hide. The version of this that actually works requires you to genuinely regulate yourself during her distance, not simply act regulated while quietly checking your phone every 10 minutes. This is also where the method asks something of you specifically, not just of the relationship. Building the capacity to stay calm during her withdrawal usually means having something solid to return your attention to while she is gone. Work, friendships, physical movement, anything that keeps your own nervous system occupied instead of spiraling in the silence. Without that, matching her pace becomes an act of white-knuckle restraint rather than genuine steadiness. And restraint eventually cracks, usually in the form of the exact message you were trying not to send. It also helps to know what a healthy stretch of distance actually looks like, so you are not left guessing in the moment. A day or two of quiet after a period of closeness is rarely a 5-alarm signal. It is often simply her system doing routine maintenance. What genuinely warrants attention is a pattern that never resolves, distance that keeps stretching longer each time with no corresponding return to warmth in between. Learning to tell an ordinary pullback apart from a slow exit is part of applying this correctly, since the same calm response serves both situations, but only one of them should shape how much longer you keep choosing to wait around for the pattern to change. The final piece is understanding what this method is not designed to do. It will not force closeness out of someone who fundamentally does not want it. If her withdrawal is not fear, but genuine disinterest, removing pursuit will not manufacture desire that was never there to begin with, and no amount of patience changes that outcome. What this method actually does is stop interfering with the outcome that would have happened naturally anyway, whether that outcome is her returning once the fear passes, or the relationship quietly ending, because the fear was never really about fear at all. Here is what matters most if you are heading into this moment again soon, because the pattern rarely stops after just once. The next time she pulls away, the goal is not to win her back through clever timing or the perfect amount of silence. The goal is to become someone whose presence does not add pressure to a system already looking for an exit, So whatever happens next reflects what is actually true between you, not what either of you performed under stress. So there are two honest outcomes waiting on the other side of this, and both are worth preparing for. If the distance was fear rather than disinterest, this steadiness is often exactly what gives her room to come back on her own terms, without ever feeling cornered into it. If the distance was something more permanent, this same steadiness protects you from months spent chasing a version of closeness that circumstances were never actually going to allow. Either way, you come out of it having practiced something far more valuable than winning one moment back, the ability to stay solid regardless of whether someone else stays solid with you. And that steadiness is the part that stays with you long after this particular pattern with her ends, one way or another.